Invocation by Pastor Sheila Turner of A Touch of His and Ministries, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this evening. We thank you for allowing us to come together one more time to make decisions for this great city of Port Orange, Florida. We thank you, Father, for the wisdom that you are sharing with us to make the right decisions. In Christ Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk call the roll?
Here.
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 Here. Here. We have a quorum. With that, is Mr. James Cannon here? Even if he's not, I'm still going to read this proclamation because it is Water Conservation Month. And first of all, before I do that, I want to thank Pastor Sheila Turner for getting us started right. Appreciate you. Water Conservation Month Proclamation. Whereas water is a basic and essential need of every living creature, and whereas the state of Florida water management districts and the city of Port Orange are working together to increase awareness about the importance of water conservation. And whereas the city of Port Orange and the state of Florida has designated April, typically a dry month when water demands are most acute, Florida's Water Conservation Month to educate citizens about how they can help save Florida's precious water resources. And whereas the city of Port Orange has always encouraged and supported water conservation through various educational programs and special events. And whereas every business, industry, school, and citizen can make a difference when it comes to conserving water. And whereas every business, industry, school, and citizen can help by saving water and thus promote a healthy economy and community. And so, therefore, I, Donald O. Burnett, Mayor of the City of Port Orange, do hereby proclaim the month of April as Water Conservation Month in the City of Port Orange, and I am calling upon each citizen and business to help protect our precious resources by practicing water-saving measures and becoming more aware of the need to save water. With my signature and the seal of the city, it is so declared in this day and in this place. Water Conservation Month. The next one, Autism Awareness Day. I haven't talked to you about this in advance, but Chase, would you do me the honor of reading this?
I'd be honored. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just before I read, I'll just go ahead and just a quick word to all those folks that that face this challenge day in and day out. You know, the experience that I've had with hundreds of families that wrestle this head on day in and day out, I can tell you that the parents and families that endure these unexpected challenges day in and day out are hands down the toughest physically and mentally and emotionally and spiritually people that I've ever had the privilege of encountering. So with that said, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Proclamation, whereas the Centers for Disease Control estimates that 1 in every 54 children in the United States are among the more than 2 million Americans living with an autism spectrum disorder. And whereas autism is a reality that affects millions of families every day. And while our nation has made progress in supporting those with ASD, we are only beginning to understand the factors behind the challenges they face. And whereas during Autism Awareness Day, we recommit to helping individuals on the autism spectrum reach their full potential. And whereas early diagnosis and treatment are essential for those affected by autism spectrum disorder, and we support any healthcare system that works for children and adults with ASD. And whereas each person should have the opportunity to live full, independent lives and follow their talents wherever they lead. In April, we recognize those with ASD who are achieving and breaking down barriers. Now, therefore, I, Chase Tremont, on behalf of Donald O. Burnett, Mayor of the City of Port Orange, do hereby proclaim April 2nd, 2022 as Autism Awareness Day and honor those with autism as we recommit ourselves to providing them and their families with the investment, support, and care they need to live independently, fully participate in their communities, and live fulfilling lives of dignity and opportunity. And with that, it is so declared. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Chase, God bless you and your wife and your family and everybody else that knows the challenges that you face. And I'm hoping that we can just bring just a little bit more awareness to the challenges that these people face. And it takes awesome parents to face the challenge, and it takes awesome people and awesome families to help support them. And I would ask that our entire community do just that, support these people best as you can.
Well, let me just say that we live in a city that, a community that is doing exactly that, from parents, from friends, from other leaders, and our own Parks and Rec staff. I tell you, when we took our children to the latest Airport Road Park, I mean, my goodness, the idea that my boy is able to ride a zip line is pretty phenomenal. And that's a testament that the city of Port Orange has an open door for everybody with all abilities. So thank you, and God bless the city.
With that, moving on to the actuarial report presentations. The first up is the police pension plan, and Chad, what did you do? Draw the short straw that you get to go first?
It means he gets to leave first.
He gets to leave first, yeah.
Well, it's better to go first, because as actuaries, it's not like we have that many things to say, so whoever says them all.
Well,
up
we're
front-
hoping you don't have that many things to say, but you know.
So hopefully this will be fairly brief for you.
It usually is when you bring good news.
Yes, it'll be similar. I can take this off now. It'll be similar to what I've gone over in the past. The graph that you see in front of you, just to remind you, the big circle represents everything that the plan will have to pay based on who's in it right now. Over that, we figure out how much of that liability is in the past. We compare that with the assets we've built up so far, and the difference between the assets we've accrued and the liability we've accrued is that unfunded actuarial liability. So one part of the required contribution that the city makes every year is an amortization of that unfunded liability. And then everything that's in the future is this present value of future normal costs. Normal cost of everybody adding another year's service and getting closer to retirement. And so that is the other half of the contribution, is that normal cost. And we adjust it all for interest, and that's how we come up with what is required each year. So each year I come in and tell you what the required contribution, funded status, all those things are, and we compare that to how it was last year. So I want to talk about the things that changed from last year to this year. So on the demographic side, we had a few, one that dropped and a couple that went straight into retirement. One disability salary increase is slightly more than anticipated, and we did unfortunately lose one of our active members. The good news is on the investment side. This last year, on a market value basis, the plan was able to get above 20% return for the year ended 9/30. The actuarial basis is where we smooth that out over a 5-year period, so that we take, a portion of the good news and the bad news every year. We spread it out over a 5-year period. That one came out to just over 10%, which is still above the assumed rate of return, so we ended up with a gain this year. And the board, in keeping with their past tradition, has lowered the assumed rate of return again this year from 7.15 down to 7.05. So that number continues to decrease. I believe FRS is now 6.8. Is that right? Yeah. So they're at 6.8 now. So not too far off from where FRS is. So with all that, the good news that we saw there on returns. Plus, the city of Port Orange makes its contribution regularly every year. And going back to, we started working here, I want to say, in '06. And back then, the funded percentage, as a matter of fact, the first thing we did was lower the assumed rate of return back then. I think it was 8.5 at the time, and we dropped that down. And so the plan kind of hit the lowest funded percentage it had seen at 43%. And this year, counting all the returns and everything that's happened throughout that period of time, we're double that. We're up to 86%. So finally some really good funded percentage numbers. It's been good for the last several years, but it was nice to see the funded percentage go up once again this year. So I apologize for the size of the numbers here, but the required contribution that you see there for the fiscal year ending 2022. For the year that's going on right now, you can see that the estimated city contribution is $2.48 million. For 2023, that will go down to $2.34 million. That's even with the reduction in the assumed rate of return. And I'll get into I'll show you all the moving pieces here in just a minute. And you can see as a percentage of pay that has gone down from about 52% to right around 43% of pay. And there you see the funded percentage, about 3/4 down the page, has gone up from about 82% to just over 86%. And as I mentioned before at the bottom there, that's with the decrease in the assumed rate of return of from 715 to 705. And just for those of you that don't know, when we talk about lowering that assumed rate of return, this is all a model. We plug in all the data, we plug in the assets and a bunch of assumptions. If we assume that we're not going to make as much money in the market, then that means we need to put more in cash. So that makes the contribution go up. So that's why normally the contribution goes up when you lower this assumed rate of return. So what happened on the unfunded side? This is that comparison of accrued liability, the liability we've accrued so far and the assets we've accrued so far. You can see the largest driver there is the normal operation of the plan. The unfunded liability went down by almost $2 million. It was $1.9 million alone. That's just from the city making its payment to pay off the unfunded every year and progress the fund forward. But then in addition, investment experience, you can see there's a big decrease there of $1.4 million for that, offset by demographic experience. As I mentioned, we had to pay a little bit higher than expected, and some additional retirements there that caused a little bit of an increase. And changing the net return to 705 did increase the unfunded liability by $600,000, but the net overall is a decrease in the unfunded liability of $1.8 million. And then lastly, on the required contribution, as I mentioned at the beginning, it's gone down. This is just the city's piece, from $2.48 million down to $2.34 million. And by the way, when I say it's the city's piece, that's assuming that the state money is exactly what it was the year before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
City always has to true that up at the end of the year, depending on how much the state actually puts in. When you go down the list of the things that changed here, the normal operation of the plan reduced at $80,000, and that's partially because we have these, every time something good or bad happens on that unfunded liability, we set up a base to pay it off over a certain period of time. So these bases are paying themselves off, and this year it caused the the required contribution to decrease by $80,000. But the big drivers at the bottom: investment experience reduced the city's contribution by $116,000. Contribution timing, it doesn't happen, like we're doing this valuation now, contribution's not going in until the year ending 23. So that decreased it by another almost $160,000, with the offsets for the demographic experience increasing it by 130, the net return having us another increase of 76, the net result being almost 139,000 decrease in the required contribution to the city for this year. So that being said, we had that good number on the market side. We're in a position right now where we have more good news than bad news saved up on that actual value of assets. So all things being equal, we might see some more reductions going forward in the returns. That's if the market continues to make the assumed rate of return, which currently is 705. So that's it in a nutshell. And I'm happy to answer any questions you guys may have.
Well, certainly, this is one of every time you have a great big year and we go exponential smoothing, we don't get to recognize it right away. Well, I know the year we're in, we're going to be cheering it next year. So
that's part of the reason you have the smoothing. We had seen in the past, if you go back to the 80s, pension funds back in the 80s sometimes would look and they'd see, all right, we did so much more in the market. Now our market value of assets is up here, but our smooth version is way down here. If we just ride up to market, whatever the market is now, then we can take that difference and, improve benefits or reduce contributions or whatever else. But you've given away all that saved up good news that you need to offset for. So we're in a good position.
You write it up and you write it down just as quick.
Yes, yes.
Okay. The other aspect of this is, I remember it wasn't that long ago that we were paying more in contributions than we were in actual salaries in police and fire. And police has come a very long way, fire is progressing. And when I start looking at percentage of pay, while 42.97 is a significant contribution,
Less,
it's we were over 100 not many years ago. 6-8 years ago, it was that has been slowly coming down, and that is instant relief for the taxpayer, especially when we need to be sensitive to taking care of their salaries. The money's got to come from somewhere, so that is continued good news as well. So
I remember when we were excited just to see that below 75% for the payroll.
yeah, and that's terrific news.
Yeah,
It's
now-
not.
Now it's closer to 40. I know we're at 43, but
Now
I
we're
mean,
paying for half of a
yeah.
department beyond, and not just
Yeah.
2 departments. So.
Good news all around.
Okay. Questions?
Just real quick, what was FRS's rate of return set to right now?
6.8.
Thank you. I missed that note and I wanted to have it for later. Thank you.
Anything else?
For me, good stuff.
You're off the hook.
Hardy, thank you very
Thanks,
much. We
Chad.
appreciate your
Thank you.
business.
Good to see you, Chad. Take care.
All right. Next up is the fire pension plan. John, you are on the hook.
You're up, Doug.
I appreciate Chad doing all the heavy lifting on the actuarial science part. So I won't have to, I won't cover all that. I'll just get into the specifics on the fire pension plan. I like to focus pretty much on the change from one year to the next so you can see the moving parts. And very, very similar to the information Chad gave for the police pension. This is, the first slide is rolling, we'll call it a 11, 12-year history of investment performance. The yellow is the fair market return, just year over year. And little actuarial 101, we discussed the smoothing, you can see the importance of it. Look at the volatility in the yellow. You know, going from 10 to 11, it jumped up, then 11 to 12 down, stayed pretty stable for a while. Get another spike in 21, and who knows what 22 will give. But if you look at the blue, the smoothing, I was sharing for an actuarial presentation. Yeah. You can see the blue is a lot more predictable. So, point well made. The 4-year smoothing in fiscal 21, you know, just like with police around 10%, we can give up a little bit this year and still have a pretty good smooth. Hopefully we don't have too many years that are below the assumption. And of course, as with police, if you go back a decade ago, we were assuming 8.5.
Mm-hmm.
And with this report, we're down to 7.25. That's what this slide shows, is the downward progression on the assumption over the last 12 years, going from 8.5 and down to 7.25 with this report. And I am still working with the pension board. They still are interested in some kind of a glide path reduction.
Yeah.
They know that that's prudent. So you got to find a happy medium between asking the city to put in more and having a more realistic assumption. But the pressure is on. When the Florida retirement system, the visual I have is it's the center of the solar system, and all the small pension plans orbit around it. So whatever FRS does, everybody else pretty much follows suit. And FRS has dropped 40 basis points. They went from 7.2 to 7, and then 7 to 6.8, and that was over 2 years. So I fully expect they would probably make another move sometime later this year. Along the way, while lowering the investment assumption, the good news is that the funded status has been slowly improving. This is what you want to see as an actuary. You want to see slow and steady improvement on the funded status. You don't want any big shocks. It's a big ship, it's a big tanker, and if you're trying to move it in a different direction, it's going to happen slowly. So this is a win-win to me. Lowering from 8.5 to 7.25 during the same time, what happened is you would ask the city for more money, just as Chad said. If you think that assets are going to return less in the future, you need more cash now. Well, that cash was going in as the market was going from, the Dow was 8,000 or 9,000 back in late '08.
Yeah.
And now, even today, I think it's around 34,000. So while we did ask the city for more cash during that time, it was invested at the right time. This is why defined benefit plans work so well. You never try to time the market. We're not day traders. When the market drops, you invest, and that happens. So this shows a very nice relationship. The investment assumption lowering, taking risk off the table, but the funded status improving all that time. So we even got down to the low 40s a decade ago, and with this report, it's been the first time in many, many years we've cracked the 70% mark, and it should still continue to improve. And here's money in the bank. If you can talk about assumptions and rates and so on, the question is how much does the trust fund have in it? And it's been every single year it has gone up in the last 12 years. Back in 2010, $15 million in the trust fund, now getting close to $40 million as we stand here today. So the quick summary, things I just went over. Net decrease in the unfunded liability over the last 10 to 12 years of 4.74 million. So the unfunded started at 21 million, it's now dropped to just over 16. Net increase in market value of assets from 26 million, from 15.3 to 41.6. Net funded ratio improvement from 42 to 70%. Board approved reduction in the investment assumption from 8.5 to 7.25. Last experience study 2019, so we have a few more years till we need to revisit that. And as I already mentioned, continued steady progress in the funded ratios expected. So, like I said, Chad did a lot of the heavy lifting, so I could just get in and out with
We'll
the
see.
pertinence.
We'll see.
But I'm happy to answer questions if there are any.
All right, let's see what we can tee up for you. Questions, council? Reed?
Good.
I saw you on your
I'm
computer.
good.
You good?
I'm looking at the numbers, and it's the progress is slow and steady, and I
Yep.
think that's the way it should be, and it's the right way. So still looking good.
We would always like to see the big jumps that get us to where we want to go, that allow us the flexibility we want to have it. We're not there yet, but we are definitely traveling the
Yeah.
road.
Yeah.
Well, it's amazing at how long it takes to make the gains and the positive advancement to secure the fund and be in the position we want to be, but yet it doesn't take a whole lot to slide the wrong way.
Yeah.
And that's,
Yeah,
I
that
guess
is a
that's
little
part
bit
of
of
the
a
trick.
dichotomy there. It's unfortunate. That can happen, but
Mhm.
it's a long-term proposition. It's many decades that we're running these things out into the future.
Yeah, and I hope that, I think we have. I think as a city overall, we've learned a tremendous amount over the 15 years that I think we've all been watching the closest. And I know Chad has been around for a long, long time and knows what I'm talking about, but the lessons learned over that period of time need to always stay fresh in everybody's mind and be somewhat guarded in these plans because they're important.
We get excited about these numbers. We got to remember the year we're in right now.
Yeah.
These numbers won't be those numbers next year.
Right.
It's true. Any other questions? Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good seeing you.
And General Employees Pension Plan.
Figured by now we'd see your daughter coming up doing these.
No, she's teaching school.
Yeah.
She decided the actuarial life wasn't for her.
All right.
So, I can't imagine
Too much
why.
excitement. She couldn't handle it all.
Not enough. It was literally the reason. She
Gotcha.
said, I can't be in an office. She's teaching third graders, so there's plenty of us.
There's action there.
Excitement there. Well, the thunder has been well stolen, so I will stick to the numbers a little bit. I'll try and not to get to too many of them.
Dave, tell us who you are for the record.
Oh, I'm
please.
sorry. I'm Dave Leonard. I'm the actuary for the General Employees Plan, and I'm from Ormond Beach, but I like to hang out in Port Orange too. I was at your lovely Riverside Park a few weeks ago for the Food Truck Fest,
Excellent.
and I had a great time. It's beautiful. I'd never been to the park before.
Every third Friday, come on back, see us.
I think I will.
Okay.
Okay. This is the kind of year it's kind of fun to come give the report. And I was excited about this year's report. Perhaps only an actuary can really get excited about doing things like that.
Well, I like seeing
But,
that extra digit on the funding ratio. That's-
Yeah, seeing that 101.4. You know, obviously we'd all like to be at 100%, and it's very rare for plans. And September 30th, 2021 was a long time ago. Lots happened since then, a few things. So we'll see where we are next year. But this is on market, and as with the other funds, we do smooth for our actuarial calculations. But we hit 101, and we'll see how we do. Here's our, the graph that everybody has of the progress that we've made, and we haven't been at 100. We've been in the 80s for a long time. And last year was really quite spectacular. Our liabilities for the September 30th, 2021 val were at 6.75%, so just a little bit under the FRS and the other plans. Let me just scoot on. This shows the demographics a little bit. It's a closed plan. It's kind of a different animal, general employees plan than police and fire, because it's closed and because the benefits are really not changing. So our active population is really very slowly decreasing. It's the gray box at the bottom there. When the plan first closed, it decreased kind of rapidly, but it's slowed down quite a bit. Whereas our retired population, that's the blue boxes, you can see is growing. It's now bigger than the actives by quite a bit, and that gives us some different challenges. One of which is we have a negative cash flow at the moment. I'll get into that in a future slide. Let me hit the investment results a little bit. We did 21.5, right in line with the other funds last year. And our valuation asset yield was 11.8. So we've been doing quite well. We're smoothing over 5 years. One of the really nice things about that, the other guys have mentioned this, is that we have a surplus of unrecognized gains. As of 2021, that was over $4 million. What that means is each year, for the next 4 years, it's almost pretty level. With the new experience, of course, coming in, we have about $1 million of gains built in every year for the next 4 years. So far this year, the fund is actually up a little over 2%. It was 1.2 at the end of February. I checked the numbers today. And of course, didn't have all the transactions figured in, but we
This
were up
market
another.
holding serve is good.
Pardon?
In this market, holding serve,
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
take it.
So we might be up at
Yeah.
about 2.5% at the moment with 6 months left in the year. One of the things that the committee has decided to do with my recommendation and the recommendation of our financial advisor is we're actually moving the interest rate that we're assuming down from 6.75 to 6%. We're going to be doing that on a 5-year phase-in, so it's not happening right away. But this year's contribution recommendations for the new fiscal year do take that into account to some extent. And even with that, we're able to move down our recommendation from 21.7, which is what you're paying this year, down to 15.1% next year. And I'm quite hopeful that the phase-in will be balanced by the recognition of the unrecognized gains so that we can keep that 15% from rising too much. It probably will rise a little bit, especially if the markets do have a down year. We've got a lot of protection against that right now, and I was really happy to see that. Ooh, did I do that?
Okay.
Don't know what-
Questions, council?
Yeah.
You said this plan's at 6.75 currently,
Right.
and you're just gonna take it down 0.15 every year for 5 years?
Well, the way we do it is we actually do two calculations. We do a 675 and a 6.0, and then we blend them.
Okay.
There's different ways to do it. Different actuaries have different methods, and that's the one that we've seen be preferred by certain actuarial organizations, so we've adopted it. Either way is basically fine. One thing it will impact is the GASB liability disclosure. That will be at flat 6% next year. So there will be an increase in the liability on the GASB side.
We'll have a difference opinion on how far we need to take it down because, you
Yeah.
know, that's something that we can debate.
Yes, 6 is pretty low.
Yeah.
The capital market assumption by our financial advisor was 5.8.
Yeah.
And he said 6 was acceptable. Now, one thing is we do have a negative cash flow, about $1.5 million a year right now of benefits that are larger than the contributions coming in. That doesn't take into account income, so the income does cover it. It's not like we're forced to sell things all the time. But
In part because it's a closed plan.
because it's a closed plan, because the active base is getting smaller and the retired base is getting bigger. So because of that, we have to be perhaps a little bit more conservative in the investing. And again, that's not my field. That's what we've been told by our financial advisor, who's done a really wonderful job. So we like to listen to him. The board likes to.
I'll be honest with you, I get itchy about going below 6.5 because there's an impact to our taxpayers every time you lower the rate of return. But this is not a large plan with a lot of people in
Right.
it, so.
And one benefit of being at a lower rate is that if the fund comes in at 5% or 4%, we're only missing by 1 or 2. If we were at 7.5, 7.25, we're missing by 2.5, 3. So it's less
seen
losses.
that game. Yeah.
Yeah.
that's-
So hopefully that part of the conservatism will work well too.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Good to see you.
Well, with all that riveting information, we've still got the audit discussion with James Moore and Company coming up.
Look at all these actuaries leaving when the auditor gets up. Have a good night, guys.
All yours.
So before they're all gone, though, I did want to start by acknowledging, I don't know the punchline, but I'm pretty sure somewhere out there's a joke that goes 3 actuaries and an auditor walk into a bar. So they're going, I'm not, so we don't get to find out what happens. But
Nice.
Well, you can't say auditor because you're acting like you came by yourself, but you didn't. You brought help.
absolutely.
I got
So yes, first Zach Shalafor, partner, James Moore and Company, joined by Hillary Sear, who is the manager on the engagement.
Okay, and who we will call the Latin phrase Gemma le parla. In Latin, that's mother of twins. So, there you go. I don't know why that is important, but she is the mother of twins. So,
Absolutely.
so if you, no matter how hard you work her to do this, she works harder at home. So, just saying.
Very true.
What you got for us, Zach?
All right, so we are here to discuss really the draft currently of the fiscal year September 30th, 2021 audit. Just to quickly note, while this is a draft form, draft reports, draft numbers, we don't expect any changes at this point. There's ultimately just some final documentation being put together by city staff that goes into this because the city does prepare what's now called an annual comprehensive financial report, where there's a whole series of additional items beyond the required financial statement components that get incorporated into this report. We do expect the report from talking with finance to be filed by the end of next week, April 15th, being that target date. Would also like to thank the council for the opportunity, as always, to work with the city. Big thank you to staff as well. Of course, John, your new finance director, I don't know how much credit he can take, but Linda Truitt, your assistant finance director, is here, and her and the rest of the team as well, throughout the entire process. Just the whole team, again, John as well, the last month or so since he started and helped bring it all to the
You're
finish.
giving John and Linda credit.
They have been great to work with, and as you'll see here, The overall results of the audit, absolutely an improvement, and the financial position very strong. So overall, it's a very good, positive news and trend look at the audit for the current year. So first and foremost, as noted, these are draft reports. There are 4 reports that we will be issuing related to the audit. The first is the audit report on the financial statements, where we do expect to issue an unmodified opinion. This is effectively a clean opinion that says that the financial statements can be relied upon, and it's the best opinion that you can receive in this report. The second report is on internal control and compliance. This is kind of where the meat of the audit is, if there's any findings, so to speak. We did have one comment this year classified as a material weakness that related to really the overall process and understanding of the new Workday ERP system. While this was a repeat from the prior year comment, I do want to highlight that substantial progress was made where it's been substantially, again, progress towards completion, remediation, and we would expect, based on that trend, for this comment to go away in next year's audit. The third report that we issue is a management letter required by the state of Florida. Mostly hits financial condition, but if there are any other comments, recommendations of note, we would identify those here. There were 2 recommendations related to budgetary compliance, monitoring and year-end adjustments if necessary, as well as related to the fund balance carry forward in the building department fund as it relates to state statutes over the use and disposition of that fund balance. There were 3 prior year comments corrected. I'll touch on that more briefly on the next slide, looking at trends. And then the final report we issue is on compliance with state statutes over investment activity and investment policies, and we did note the city to be in compliance with that specified statute.
Okay, perfect.
So new slide for this year, just to give kind of a 5-year look back, comment progression, year over year. Of course, last year with all the changes, implementation, there were a spike from 1 total comment to 5, 3 in that material weakness category. That's really kind of what we look at the most. So again, that was 3 last year, 2 of those corrected, and the other one, as I mentioned, substantially on its way to being corrected. So absolutely what you would want to see here, looking at that trend year over year. With regard to other separate audits, we did issue for the 2nd year now, based again on a new state statute, separate audits for each of the CRAs. Those were clean audits with no findings. Also include a report noting that the use of the CRA funds was in accordance with state statutes. The golf course agreement, we did have 1 comment there related to audit adjustments and the bank reconciliation process. Nothing of significant concern, really one that we have to report when we do have adjustments or find corrections to the numbers. And then no comments identified in the police or general pension plan audits. Looking at the numbers, the general fund, of course, is the primary operating fund of the city. Your fund balance here is broken out into different categories, where really the lower it is, the more accessible or spendable it is. So that non-spendable up top, 1.5 million, that's primarily general fund loan to the CRA, because that doesn't have a set repayment schedule for those dollars to come back. That gets backed out as non-spendable. There are some miscellaneous restricted monies where there's external rules over the use of those funds. Most of your restricted funds are in separate special revenue funds and otherwise, so that's why that number is pretty small. Your committed fund balance, very similar to restricted, but that's when you have basically internally restricted funds by the council. So again, just $59,000 there. The assigned represents earmarked fund balance. Most of that was done through your fiscal year 2022 budget process and what was appropriated to be spent out of reserves in this current fiscal year. And then the unassigned $20.6 million, that's just the residual, what's left over with no strings attached. What I will note, there was a pretty substantial increase from about $20 million to $24.7 million this year. Again, much of that, not due to COVID, but due to the impact of COVID. When you all were adopting this budget for fiscal year 2021, that was summer of 2020, when we were kind of in this just ultimate uncertainty of COVID. Your sales tax revenues had gone off a cliff in the month that the state was shut down. Lots of uncertainty over how fast that would recover, property values and so forth. So between that side of things and revenues really recovering much faster than anticipated, and on the expense side, keeping that belt tightened. Again, due to that uncertainty, overall a very favorable trend year over year, looking at that change in fund balance, and pretty consistent with what we've seen for most cities across the state that kind of, again, were in those same circumstances, saw those same results. To measure that total fund balance, looking at the assigned plus unassigned, about $22 million. Relative to what you spent in the general fund this year of a little over $37 million, you're at almost a 60% reserve level, about 7.5 or so months. That is a little bit of an increase from your prior year percentage, about 43, and then most importantly, over the minimum policies approved by the council a number of years ago for at least 30 to 35% when looking at this measurement from a percentage standpoint. So again, over the minimum is absolutely the key, and in a very strong position, again, coming out of the pandemic and continuing to go forward with a little bit more sense of normalcy and stability over what to expect from a budgetary standpoint. Looking at your business type funds, really what we look at here is your unrestricted net position, focused largely on just the trend from year to year to say, okay, you want to be moving slightly in a positive direction. You don't want to go backwards, but you don't want to be increasing too fast. From a water and sewer standpoint, the absolute kind of standard progression we'd want to see. Solid waste, we talked about last year as recycling charges were really ballooning, and that kind of flipped. Of course, with that rate adjustment, we should start to see that move in the right direction next year, but that kind of speaks to, okay, here's why that all came about in terms of that fund losing money, where everything needed to be kind of adjusted to get that balanced out going forward. Stormwater does show a decrease. Most of that was just to capital investment in the stormwater utility in excess of the operating surplus, not an operating loss, so to speak, so no real concerns there. Golf course, a slight improvement in that deficit as it's been for a number of years, but again, not moving in the wrong direction. Then your internal service funds, again, that small improvement year over year. And then lastly, pension funds. We've all heard enough about pensions, probably for one night, but just to hit a couple highlights, these numbers are all the point in time measurement for financial reporting. So the numbers everyone went through earlier were the smooth values from a valuation perspective. So if anyone goes and checks this versus prior, that's why those unfunded liabilities and funded percentages will be slightly different, not substantially, but a little bit different. But I did want to just highlight that because, again, that $15 million cumulative unfunded liability does show up on the city's financial statements, but I always kind of like to point out that that's not going to be a, hey, come write a check for this $15 million liability on your statements. It's about annually going through that process with the actuaries and always putting in what is required to be funded based on their evaluations, which has been done every year. So with that, I will entertain any questions, any punchlines for the joke, or any other comments. And thank you again for the chance to be here.
And I appreciate you and Hillary taking the time to meet with us individually. I also appreciate you addressing the fund balances, particularly in solid waste and stormwater. I also am grateful that we're doing this now and not in June like we did last year. So that in itself denotes some progress on our part as well as yours, and we appreciate your help with that. That aside, what kind of questions can we come up with? Let's see. Let's tee them up. Council?
I don't have a question, but you did offer to tell a joke, so what do you got?
No, I need the punchline.
Oh.
Three actuaries and an auditor walk into a bar. I need the second part. I don't have that. I'm looking for help.
Form that.
Yeah, that's all you.
And Chase, full disclosure, he did say he didn't have the punchline when he, so it's all good.
We're not that creative.
We are spinning out of control. Questions, council? You got till next year to come up with a punchline. Anyone?
I just thank you for the many years doing this together, pal. You are first rate. Well done.
Thanks.
Reed, you got anything?
Yeah, so I see that on, oh good lord, I'm not going to try to give you a slide number. On general fund continued, we have that 59.5% on our balance, and our internal minimal policy is 30 to 35. So just quick math there. What's the difference that we're looking at that we're above our own internal policy right now?
Yeah, if we went the high end and said about 25% over, relative to the total, that's probably about $10 million. If I had to ballpark, I'd say 9 to 10 million.
All right. Because I feel like we're getting into a territory where that's a lot of money sitting around for one-time costs, and we probably, when it comes time to go over next year's budget and any capital improvements and whatever we want to do, we're going to have some serious conversations up here, because that's ticking up pretty high.
Well, we're not going to be too long, because the CIP will be before us next month.
That's right. And
Well, and ironically, if I can just chime in on that, ironically, as we went through the 2 years of COVID, if you remember, there was a tremendous amount of unknown forecasting, and it was the hope for the best and prepare for the worst.
Well, and there's not just from the standpoint of forecasting less coming in, those reserves are there because we made an effort to not spend dollars
Right.
that we normally would have spent. And I hate to defer maintenance. You know, we talk about the air conditioning in this building as one of those things.
Yeah. Yep.
We've deferred it. You know, we keep kicking that can down the road, trying to hold our. We didn't know what we didn't know then what we know now.
right.
Yeah, and I would say that, and Councilman Foley is absolutely correct. This is one of those. There can be worse problems to have in the history of our city, although it goes back many years ago, before any of the folks that are up here today were on the council. But we've seen times when we don't have the reserves to respond, and on top of tough economic times and other things, and how far that sets us back as a city when it's time to go play catch up. You don't, it's weird, you don't lose ground at the same rate you can catch it up. You know, when you lose a lot of ground really fast, it takes a really long time to catch it up, you know. And so it's I don't want to refer to it as it's a good problem to have, but it is a concern of mine. I mean, when I came on council, we didn't even have a policy on what we decided. You know, we said we need one. We need to come up with a number, and we looked at that GFOA recommendation. We said, well, let's at least double that.
Right.
You know, and Zach had a lot to do with helping us shape that policy, being a coastal community, and the fact that I believe he lives in our city, so he wants us to be conservative with all good reason, and as we should, and we've tried really hard to do that. But I think that forecasting from a couple of years ago, the right decisions were made. This is a result of that to some degree, and we just got to figure out how to wisely use those funds, and we will, and get some things caught up in the community.
Well, I think it's easy when you look back on it. Clearly, it's the right decision to make at the time.
Sure.
You're facing adversity and uncertainty. It's never a bad thing to pad your savings account. You know,
Is there any better teacher than hindsight?
There you go. So I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's getting into
Right, but
a
it's not
point
something
we need to be consciously
We'll have a
aware
lot
of.
to talk about next month.
Yeah.
Our preference for sure.
Yeah.
You got anything else?
I was just going to say, appreciate you and your team and the relationship that you have working with our finance department. Always, you guys are you know, it's great that we have you. We're fortunate to be able to have the firm that represents and works with our staff, and it's a good position to be up here when the auditors are coming in, and it's not doom and gloom, and it's not a handful of issues and concerns, and the concerns that are there are things that have already been identified and they're already in the works and stuff like that. And so I appreciate your report and what you guys do for the city of Port Orange. I know a lot of people don't think a whole lot about the annual audit, but it's important to all of us. You know, this is something where you come up once a year, we hear the report, we see the numbers. For those that don't know, we also all meet individually with Zach and his team, and go over things in a little bit more in depth and detail. But this is one of those times as elected officials where we look at it and we go, okay, we're on the right track, things are good, we're in good financial shape as a city, we're doing the right things, we're following the right rules and the policies and things like that. So it is refreshing. I don't know how many people would describe seeing an auditor, as being refreshing, but in my mind, it is refreshing when you guys come forth and present this report. So it helps us because we don't, you know, the elected body, we're not here in City Hall. We don't work out of the finance department. We don't have our hands in that every single day. So we rely on this audit to bring confirmation back to us to go, we're on track.
Well put.
And that's good stuff. So thanks again, Zach.
Drew, you got anything to add?
No, I just agree with that, and, you know, it has been a pleasure to have you guys here and doing this, and it's comforting, you know, knowing you're looking out for us because we don't see that day-to-day stuff, so I appreciate what you do.
Wayne, there was one material weakness. I know we talked about it individually, and I know that we've been working on it, but could you just address that and our action plan?
A couple years ago when we went to Workday, we had a couple of issues transitioning to that, and I think you saw in the trend that the auditor presented to you, each year we continue to build systems in place so that we can get the most out of our Workday system and its financials. And so the plan is ongoing. We have finance director who is already starting to work on plans to make sure that as we go forward with all of the things that Workday does, so that its automations are where we need to be from the audit. So it's all about making sure that we understand how Workday works different than how Naviline that we used to have did in the past.
Overcoming the learning curve.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I thought that important to address that, to make sure that people know that we are taking the deficiency not just as commentary, but that we have an actual plan in place to address it.
And not just the deficiency, everything in there. We were working on, I love my analogies for sports, and we were working on the idea of an audit is to pitch a perfect game. You know, auditors will find something, and your objective next year is no walks, no pass balls, no errors. You know, we will always be shooting to pitch that perfect game, and they'll let us know if we didn't.
I like that baseball analogy stuff when opening day's coming up in a couple days.
It's tomorrow, isn't it? Or no,
Thursday.
Yep.
Thursday. Zach, appreciate you, Hillary, and let's do it again next year. And Wayne, your challenge is to throw that perfect game for them, make so that we can see the picture that is created next year.
Got the other 8 guys on the team to help out.
Okay.
Maybe he can come in March next year. Right?
You heard that. Thank you.
All right, thanks,
See you,
y'all.
Zach.
Thanks,
Zach.
Zach.
I need an
Thanks, Hillary.
approval for the agenda for the evening.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a proper second. All in favor of approving the agenda for the evening signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Public comments on consent agenda items. Items 9 through 12 on consent. Anybody wish to comment on those? There being none, may I have approval for the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve items 9 through 12 on consent. Call the roll.
Councilmember Foley.
Yes.
Councilmember Draymond.
Yes.
Councilmember Bastian.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. Item 13, Port Orange Property Development Incorporated Joint Annual Meeting of the Members.
Call the annual meeting of the members, directors, and design review board of Port Orange Property Development Incorporated to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Donald Burnett.
Present.
Scott Stiltner.
Here.
Drew Bastian.
Here.
James Draymond.
Here.
Reed Foley.
Here.
An objection to the notice of the meeting? There are no objection. Notice is accepted. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of February 16th, 2021 meeting of the members and directors?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and proper second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. I have a motion to approve the minutes of February 16th, 21 meeting of the Design Review Board.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and proper second. Any comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We have the election of the directors. Do I have a motion to elect the board of directors? We have Donald Burnett. We have Mayor Donald Burnett, City Council District 1 Representative Reed Foley, City Council District 2 Representative Chase Tremont, City Council District 3 Representative Drew Bastian, City Council District 4 Representative Scott Stiltner. Do I have a motion to elect the board of directors?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Any further business to be brought before the members? There being none, we'll move on to the business of the Board of Directors. Do I have a nomination for the position of chairman?
Move to approve Reed Foley as chairman.
Second. Can
We
you
have a
use,
nomination and a second for Reed Foley for chairman.
use the
Any
city
comment? There being none.
Councilman Tremont, can we use the councilman district with that motion, just in case, as those change, we're gonna try to
The-
keep the district with the individual.
Sure, we have
It's not going anywhere.
amended, we have an amended nomination.
The,
Amendment for,
I will clarify my nomination for the chair being Reed Foley, the District 1 representative.
second.
A motion and a proper second. Is that sufficient for you, Mr. City Attorney? Thank you, sir. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. We have a nomination for vice chairman.
Move to approve Mr. Drew Bastian, the District 3 representative.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a proper second. Any comments? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Do I have a nomination for president?
Go ahead, you're on a roll.
I'm on a roll. I will nominate myself.
I'll second.
We have a proper nominee for city council district, we have mayor, excuse me, Mayor Donald Burnett for president, and a proper second. Any comments? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. We have a nomination for vice president.
I would like to nominate Mr. Scott Stiltner,
there we go. Well, second.
City Council District.
District 4 representative of the
District
City
4.
Council.
We have a nominee, we have a motion and a proper second. Any comments? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0. I have a nomination for secretary.
I'd like
Item E.
Yeah, it's going to come down to one person, so I think I will nominate the District 2 representative, Mr. Chase Tremont.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a proper second. Any comments? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0. Do I have a motion to elect the treasurer with the recommendation being Finance Director Jonathan McKinney?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a proper second. Any comments? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0 with Jonathan McKinney as treasurer. I have a motion to appoint a new registered agent, also with the recommendation being Jonathan McKinney.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and proper second. Any comments? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That's it? All those in
We need
favor
5
signify
ayes.
by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Very good. Motion carries 5-0. Any further business to be brought before the Board of Directors?
Yes, there is the Design Review Board.
Well, there being none, we will move on to the Design Review Board. We have the election of the chairman and vice chairman of the Design Review Board. Do I have a nomination to elect the chairman for the one-year term?
I would like to nominate District 1 representative, Mr. Reed Foley. Reed Foley.
Him too. I'll second.
There you go.
We have a nominee. We have a motion and a proper second. Any comments? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0. I have a nomination now to elect the vice chairman for a one-year term.
I would like to nominate City Council District 2 representative, Mr. Chase Tremont. Tremont?
Tremont?
Gracious me. More water.
Second.
We have a motion and a proper second. Any comments from the council, from the board? No comments. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0. Is there any further business for the Design Review Board? There being none, this annual meeting of the members, directors, and design review board is adjourned.
Item 14 is the City Center Corporate Park Property Owners Association.
Call the joint special meeting of members and meeting of the Board of Directors of the City Center Corporate Park Property Owners Association to order. Roll call, please.
Paul Burnett,
Present?
Scott Silver,
Here.
Drew Bastian,
Here.
Chase Tremont,
Here.
Reed Foley.
Here.
Item 2, do I have a motion to ratify all action taken by the board in the past year?
So moved, sir.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Item 3, do I have a motion to appoint the city's new finance director? You're getting a lot of work tonight. Jonathan McKinney as registered agent effective today, and to authorize the president, Scott Stiltner, to execute all documents to effectuate this change.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Do I have item 4, do I have a motion from the Board of Directors to recommend to the members to adopt Resolution 2022-1 dissolving the City Center Corporate Park Property Owners Association Incorporated?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Item 5, is there any further business to come before the Board of Directors? There being none, we'll move on to member business. Item 6, roll call of the members, please.
Paul Burnett,
Present?
Scott Silver,
Here.
Drew Bastian,
Here.
Chase Tremont,
Here.
Reed Foley.
Here.
Thank you. Item 7, do I have a motion to accept the notice of the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Item number 8, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the February 16th, 2021 meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Item number 9, do I have any reports of officers or committees? All right, there being none, we'll move on to item 10. Item number 10, consideration and vote for dissolution. The Board of Directors has recommended approving Resolution 2022-1 dissolving the City Center Corporate Park Property Owners Association Incorporated. Do I have a motion to adopt Resolution 2022-1?
You do. So moved.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Item number 11, do I have a motion to delegate Councilman Foley to approve the minutes of tonight's meeting?
So moved.
Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Item 12, is there any further business to discuss? There being none, this meeting is adjourned.
All right, that brings us back to the council portion of the meeting. Public participation. Kristen Johansson.
Good evening, gentlemen. Kristen Johansson, Port Orange. I'm here representing the Board of Directors for the Port Orange South Daytona Chamber of Commerce. As always, we would like to thank you with your partnership with the Chamber and continued support of our endeavors. Coming up this month, we have a morning mix and mingle on Friday, sponsored by the Riverside Pavilion at 8 a.m. And at the end of the month, on April 28th, we have our annual Tasteful Affair event. Tickets are $40 in advance, so please join us for that. And finally, near and dear to my heart, yes, sir.
28th, you said?
28th of April.
April 28th.
April 28th,
Thursday the
5:30
28th,
p.m.,
not this
Riverside Pavilion, $40.
I'll eat salads all week for that day.
Perfect. We hope you'll join us. That's awesome. Yes,
Can we get the tickets in advance?
$40.
Do we pay you, or?
Feel free to check out the website, the Port Orange South Daytona Chamber website.
Apparently this is a council who likes to eat.
pschamber.com.
Gotcha.
And near and dear to my heart, I would like to let you all know that this year's, the 2022 Youth Civic Leadership Experience, it's our 5th annual event. It is a high school leadership program run in the month of June, for a week in June. for any students that either reside in Port Orange, South Daytona, or attend a South Daytona, Port Orange high school. Are welcome to participate. The deadline had been last Friday. It's been extended for 1 week. So if anybody is aware of anyone that is interested in applying for that program, it's a fantastic 1 week long program. Many of you have participated in it in the past. I have flyers and applications with me, and they can all be found on the Chamber website.
All right.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Scott, if you want to go to Tasteful Affair, you call 761-1601, and they will be happy
hook
to
me
take.
up. All right.
They'll be happy to take your
$40?
credit card over the phone.
$40.
That's the rumor.
There you go.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Pre-purchase, $40.
Robert Reinhagen.
Mayor, council members, Robert Reinhagen, 1425 Dexter Drive North, Port Orange. A while back, I listened to a program about hate crimes, and they had discussed that only 14% of law enforcement agencies nationwide actually participate in the national data collection for hate crimes. So I decided I was going to go over and talk to our police chief, and I went over to the building, the police department building, and the officer on duty told me that I could not get an appointment to see the chief, that I had to go through the chain of command. So he got a sergeant to come out to talk to me, and again I went through the whole thing about what I wanted to see. I'm looking for some sort of procedure or policy dealing with hate crimes and how you report it and how you train your people. He talked for a while, went into the back and talked to other people, and ultimately came back and didn't have anything to give me, and said that I should contact Sergeant Harrison. And I contacted him through email, and he did send me a copy of a procedure number 42.2, criminal investigations. And I read that, and it made no mention of hate crimes whatsoever. And I talked to Sergeant Harrison, and there was no effort to offer any copy of any reports that are being submitted, no offer of any synopsis of any training given, and the sergeant said that since he's been here, he hasn't seen any hate crimes. And I would suggest to you that if you don't define hate crimes and you don't train people on what hate crimes are, you're probably not going to find any. And so that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Robert. And Sharice Boyd. Welcome.
Hello. Hello, everyone. I am Sharice Boyd, and for those who don't know, I am running for County Council at large, but I think you all know that. And I'm reaching out to all of the county municipalities within the county and letting them know about myself and letting them have the opportunity in public to whether they want to support me, ask questions, or reach out to me. I think that's important. I don't want the perception, as many of us know, people are endorsed or supported later behind doors, and you're like, well, where'd that come from? I want it to be very upfront that I'm asking publicly. If not, there's no harm, no foul, I promise, but I do want to give that opportunity. Also, as a former resident, when I first moved here in Port Orange, I want to say to those who don't know, although I do live in Daytona, I understand the needs of our communities, and I do say that plural, because there are a lot of things that underline that aren't being represented or spoken to. And what I did notice when I came in here as well, is many meetings, we don't have a lot of public participation. That lack of public participation throughout the county is based on a lack of trust and other issues we're having within our communities. And I feel as the at-large member, the person needs to be, number one, available, and then accessible, and then willing to do the work. If you don't know, I'm very well known in the county overall for my community services and other things that I've done. And I would extend that olive branch to you all. Although I've left here, I still love my Port Orange. But I would extend my olive branch to you all to work with y'all if elected, to let you all know that I wouldn't be starting from the ground up. And although I may not have the same foundation others have with you all, I guarantee that my foundation does extend beyond Port Orange. And my intention is just an earnest heart and to help those who are in need. I do have a background in budget. I've worked for Volusia County and oversaw the budget for 4 years. I worked for Prince William County Fire and Rescue. I oversaw the budget for 3 years. And I've also worked for the U.S. Court of Appeals 11th Circuit, where I was actually awarded for outstanding performance for overseeing the budget. Budget is a big thing, we understand. I know here with taxes especially, we want someone in that position that knows and understands government finances. I do. Fortunately, I am coupled with a few other things that help me, which is being a community activist, being involved in different organizations, and working for those who are like me, the average person. I am not the perfect person, but I do promise I'm the best candidate for the position. So I thank you for your time. And again, if anyone needs to reach me, my phone number is 386-341-5670. And my name is spelled S-H-E-R-R-I-S-E. So you can email me at, or go to my website, votesharice.com. I got it, Don. And then I did give her my business card as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And is it Raina Lee? I want to make sure I'm saying your name right.
So hi, my name is Raina Lee, and there is a public issue that is often buried and forgotten about. So in the past few years, tampon and pad dispensers have been removed from public restrooms around the U.S. Research done shows that 86% of women unexpectedly start their periods in public settings without the supplies they need. After interviewing multiple homeless and abused women, the number one issue that is mentioned is lack of hygiene supplies. Currently, the health department of Volusia County provides free condoms and sterilized needles. They do not provide any form of feminine hygiene products. Access to these products is a human necessity, because sex is a choice and menstruation is not. Countless public places in the Daytona area lock their restrooms because they do not want homeless women to go in and clean themselves. I know this because I interviewed a homeless woman who, because of the lack of hygiene products, had to wring out her underwear in public sinks to keep herself clean and to feel human. She expressed how incredibly humiliating it is to have to walk around looking and feeling dirty. 1 in 3 Daytona citizens are on welfare, and SNAP's benefits and WIC do not cover the cost of hygiene products. Lack of period products is a hidden consequence of poverty. From all the women that I interviewed, they all stated that the 25-cent tampon dispensers would have helped them exponentially throughout their crisis. Public restrooms are able to accommodate for free toilet paper and soap. There is no reason to take away these dispensers when there is still a profit margin. They are inexpensive to install, with each machine costing around $200 to $300. Each tampon and pad is then purchased for around 13 cents in bulk. They are sold for around 25 to 50 cents each. It should be a woman's basic right to help her with something that is uncontrollable. Meeting the hygiene needs of all adolescent girls and women is a fundamental right of dignity, public health. This issue is widespread and deserves more attention, and I am here as a voice for all women.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that brings us to council comments and concerns from council members. So let's start at this end tonight. Drew, you got anything for us?
No, still got a bit of an agenda, so I'm gonna stay quiet.
Okay. Scott?
Just want to shout out, great job to all of the Port Orange Community Trust volunteers for putting on a fabulous Spring Fest recently in our city center complex. Great job as always. Fabulous weather. The event was very well attended. It's nice to see us being able to kind of get back to some of that. I know that it takes a lot to put that on, and they're always looking for volunteers. So on behalf of those folks, if anybody is looking forward to join a really great group of folks and help them out with events, Port Orange Community Trust is always looking for volunteers. And then another note of that, just for council, I had asked the assistant city manager if she had any insight, because I've had a few questions recently on when will the YMCA pool heater be back up and operational, and we think that that's going to wrap up sometime into the week.
Yep.
So
Parts are finally in.
we'll stick with soon for now, but hopefully that's coming soon. So that's all I got.
Good. Reed?
I'll echo what Scott said about the Spring Fest. Came over, that was a really good time. I also want to give a shout out to the Rotary Club. They put on a really good golf tournament on Saturday, and me and Matt, we showed them how it was done, right? Finishing, what were we, like 35th place or something?
You're in the top 50.
No, but it was over at Cypress Head, and despite the rain, the course was in just great shape. It was an awesome time.
Just want to let you know, I was available for your team, but I didn't remember anybody asking, so just saying.
Well, you'll have to talk to the team captain over there.
Yeah.
See how that goes.
Okay.
But anyway, but it was a really good time, and I want to give them a shout out. Really enjoyed it. So.
The events that we have regularly scheduled, whether they be city or people using our facilities, those are active. There's a lot of them, and certainly we had a major one 2 weekends ago at the city center. Things like food truck night, third Fridays of the month coming up. You can get all that on social media and on our website, but there's lots of stuff going on in the city constantly. And it amazes me the popularity of some of these events. So I appreciate the staff's hard work to make those happen. With that, that brings us to the Environmental Advisory Board report.
Good evening, everyone. Mayor, Council. We had a very lively discussion at our last meeting. Trees and Lynn Stevens was there to talk about how we take down trees, why we take down trees.
Do me a favor, point that towards you just a little bit.
Okay, there we go.
I
Is
wanna
that
make sure
better?
everybody can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Why we take down trees. There are times in our developments where we need to have them removed. Our developments, a lot of them were built in the 80s, 70s, and the wrong trees were put in. And so we're addressing that as a board, coming up with some suggestions that we can bring to staff and maybe set out some guidelines for future building. So that is one of the focuses we have. We also learned about why and how the city makes the determination to take down the trees on behalf of what the city is required to do. Talked about how we don't always know if it's a HOA's responsibility or is it the city's responsibility. People in the developments don't know. As just a general everyday resident, I may not know, but we try to educate the residents that they should call and ask. They're making a lot of assumptions, and that's being reflected in social media. All of us live in different parts of the city, and we're aware of what is on social media. We're all part of different groups. Scott, and follow yours. We really do try to help the people understand that it isn't all the city making all the decisions. There are other entities involved, and you show a lot of restraint, sir. Yeah, not me. I applaud you for that.
I've improved.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes, but not only do we take the feedback from the residents, and it's not always negative, but we do learn about issues that are concerning them when we try to bring them to the board and address them and ask for help in how we understand and how we can help them. So through the social media, we would like to be able to use the education process, but bring questions more to the city and just stop making the assumptions. While we're going to entertain the tree bank in a little while on the second reading, we also are using what we choose to do going forward. We are going to be part of the Earth Day event for the city of Port Orange. We will have a table, and hopefully while working with the city, we can supply and start a process of providing trees to the residents with education and proper planting of trees. It's not just going to be hand out seedling and just plant it wherever. That is our biggest problem. Why we need to pay attention to what gets planted in the front of the houses, how we can work to maintain a beautiful area that we have. We are a tree city, and we need to really focus on getting people to look at what their new houses are anytime they have to take out a tree, what you're going to replant. It just they're breaking up the sidewalks, they're creating damage 20, 30 years down the road, and that's too late. So we really want to make good decisions and help them help them have the opportunity for what we can give to them to help. Do you have any questions?
Questions, council?
Just a supporting comment for you, I guess. So in my district, a lot of the communities are approaching that 20, 25 year age, some in the 30s perhaps, and a lot of those oak trees and hardwoods that were planted that were 10 feet tall, 2 inches in diameter, are now 30 inches in diameter with canopies that exceed 40 feet. And you're absolutely right. You know, when you plant a tree, and a lot of times, by the way, a lot of the ones that we're seeing these are additional trees that the city didn't necessarily require, that the developers, which is great, thought we're going to put in extra, we're going to put in more, but they didn't always end up in places where, you know, they looked great, and a lot of them do. And City Center, by the way, our own campus here is part of that, you know. Those oak trees are magnificent. They are iconic to our campus. But there is going to come a time, and it is coming quickly, where we've really got to look and see how do we continue to maintain the infrastructure at the same time without having to lose the tree or what happens. Something eventually will give, and what we're seeing in a lot of residents' homes is foundation structural damage, concrete damage to the driveways, the sidewalks, the curbing, irrigation damage, utility damage. There's a lot, and it's a difficult thing to project out, and especially because so many of those neighborhoods, especially in the District 4 area, those are PUD communities, so they were designed with a little bit of unique planning involved, and we want to do this, and the city says, well, if you do this, we'll let you do that, and things like that, and you come up with a better product in a lot of the cases. And a lot of them have far more in terms of trees that were put back than what were required, which is great. That's really what you want to see. But where they ended up is a concern. And I've actually got some concerns that I've been talking to the city manager about, some of the newest developments where they've learned from mistakes and they've said, okay, we're not putting this tree between the sidewalk and the road. Now they've stuck the tree so close to the home that my fear is that that's going to be great for 10 or 15 years. But after that, then what's going to happen? Because those hardwoods are going to root, and they're going to grow, and they're going to expand, and they're not going to stop. And eventually, those problems come up. And so I don't have the answers to them, but I appreciate that it is something you guys are looking at. And I think some of that is definitely the education aspect of, you know, we want you to plant more trees in your yard, and we want to be part of a program that helps that. But don't take this tree today and go and plant it 2 feet off your sidewalk.
Right.
Because you're going to regret that, you know. And so kudos to the board and their insight to look at that and have the vision, and more so than just plant more trees.
Right, exactly. Well, that's working with the staff
Yeah,
as well, too.
plant the right trees, put them in the right places so that we eventually get to see that 25-year-old, 50-year-old oak tree that looks magnificent and is gorgeous again. So,
Well, like Lynn
good work.
Stevens likes to say, right tree, right place.
Right. Yeah, sure,
and that helps. Well, it may be something that people aren't aware of, is how much money the city spends replacing sidewalks. You know, I live in an area where it would be nice if the sidewalks were replaced. That would be nice, but it's not critical. But there are some that are critical, and they spend a lot of money, and people don't think about either driving on a sidewalk or just, again, where they plant a tree. So if somebody actually knew how much money was spent on that subject, and there aren't too many alternatives, and so it's like bad money following a good idea, but it's always gonna have to be replaced. And finally, one of the social media issues are people constantly commenting on, they're just wiping out an entire area of land, taking down every tree, and they just feel that that is unnecessary. Well, there are some necessary aspects to cutting down trees to build houses or commercial property, but in the city, and because of the hard work of the staff and the board, the Environmental Advisory Board, redoing the tree ordinances, there has been a lot of progress with the builders leaving more of the land for conservation. You don't always see it. You do see, if you actually look around other cities, you will see that there is a store, it doesn't matter what store, and there's nothing in front of it. It's just a sidewalk, maybe a little piece of grass maybe, and then a store. Not in Port Orange. There are trees. There's a buffer. And that's why one of the reasons that we look so beautiful and we look like and we have shade and there's so much to shade. But we also have to recognize that that doesn't happen through the goodness of the builders' hearts. They have to have parameters. And that's good. It's not expanding to where they are affected by trying to convince people that this is a good thing. It is a good thing and people will accept it. So that's transitioned to other developers leaving more trees for conservation in the developers, in the housing projects, in the commercial projects. So you can see, if you could look on these maps, that there are the commercial builders are leaving it in the back. They're leaving, if we require 15%, they're leaving 20, 30. But they're willingly doing it. And when they're taking down the trees, they're paying into the tree bank. So the system that we have been working towards to keep a focus on being a tree city and understanding people's desire to live in Port Orange is working. Slowly, like the budgets, but they are working. And with the support of the council and the support with work and the availability of the city, we are going to make it more desirable for people to come here and not only live, but to come and build as well. Okay?
Agreed.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you.
Thanks. Good to see you.
Appreciate it. The public hearing portion of the meeting is now ordered. Open. Item 17 is first reading of ordinance number 2022-6, which is an approval amendment to the emergency management ordinance. Ordinance number 2022-6 is an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 26, Emergency Management, Article 1, in general, Section 26-6.2, Declaration of State Emergency, in Section 26-6.3, C, 6, and D, Emergency Powers, to limit the duration of emergency orders for certain emergencies and create exceptions to curfew. It adding Section 26-10, availability of emergency orders, declarations and ordinances to provide that emergency order and declarations and ordinances shall be available on the city's webpage, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for codification, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Move to approve ordinance number 2022-6.
Second.
You don't want to repeat all that for that
Nope.
motion? Okay. We have a motion, proper second. The item's open and on the floor for discussion. Wayne, what you got for us?
The title, as you mentioned, is very thorough as to what this is. State statutes recently changed, and this ordinance allows us to be compliant with them related to emergency orders and ordinances. The fire chief is here if you have any questions, or would like him to give you an extensive presentation if there are any questions on this. But it is basically changing the rules to be compliant with state statutes.
Pretty much what we read.
He is-
Questions, council?
He is so hoping nobody's got questions.
He's chomping at the bit, isn't he? Questions, council?
I don't have any.
Would anyone here care to speak to the item? There being none, back to us. Final comments or questions, council? Good. There being none, call the roll.
Councilmember Foley,
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont,
Yes.
Councilmember Bastian,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner,
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. The public hearing portion of the meeting is now closed. Back to regular agenda, which brings us to second reading of ordinance number 2022-5. Ordinance number 2022-5 is an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending Chapter 9, Article 2 of the Land Development Code to allow funds from the city's tree bank to be used for educational outreach programs and tree giveaways, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Move to approve ordinance 2022-5.
Second.
We have a motion, proper second. The item's open on the floor for discussion. We have second reading. Council comments or questions?
I wasn't here for the first reading, so I do want to leave a quick comment. When I first brought this idea over to Wayne, I didn't know exactly how it was going to proceed, but I'm really excited about this. I'm really glad to see the Planning Commission passed it 6-0, and I'm glad you guys passed it last meeting, even though I wasn't here to support it, because I do think it gives our EAB a chance to be productive, positive influencers in our community, and it gives them something that they can really go out and do and be an asset to our community environmentally. So I'm really excited about this, and I'm just looking forward to seeing what comes of it by opening them up and allowing them to do this. So I just want to make sure I put that on the record since I missed the first reading.
And you know, there are a lot of places, if you decide to go out and just drive around the city with a mindset of where could we put some more trees? There are a lot of places. You know, some of them, again, right tree, right place, but you know, some of them are not set up for irrigation and things like that, but there are ways around that can still result in us getting more trees in our city in very strategic locations that's going to enhance the aesthetic look of the city and increase the amount of trees overall. So
Well, yeah, and then with what we were just talking about when we had with the environmental board report is giving that extra education. You know, when they're at Earth Day, if they're giving out trees or whatever it is, knowing don't put it too close to the sidewalks or too close to the road or too close to the foundation of your home. You know, and it's partnering experience and education with funds to make a positive impact. So I think it's a win all the way around.
or dig through the fiber optic line. Never mind.
Yep, no, yeah, we can make the list, right?
Any other comments, council? Would anyone here care to speak to the item? There being none, back to council. Final comments or questions? There being none, call the roll.
Councilmember Foley,
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont,
Yes.
Councilmember Bastian,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stillman.
Yes.
Mayor Net.
Yes, 5-0. Item 19 is a request for waiver of bidding requirements, direction and approval of the type of show dated for the July 4th Spectacular and award to vendor. I'm recommending the motion to provide the direction, the type of show and date for the show of July 4th to be approved with 2,951 shells on July 4th, and to waive the formal bidding requirements and award it to our vendor, our current vendor, for the 4th of July fireworks spectacular for fiscal year 2022, authorizing the city manager and city attorney to finalize the contract documents and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute associated documents.
Mayor, would that be the Explosive Touch, I believe is the vendor name there for that
Explosive
option?
Touch, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. That's the motion I'm recommending. Can I have such motion?
Sure.
So moved.
Second. I was going to reread it, but we'll go with
As
that.
stated.
We'll go with the abbreviated
You
motion.
slid that in there. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Wayne, you want to have Susan tell us what our options are?
Yes, sir, I'd be happy to let her do that.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Tell us how this
Susan,
came about.
Susan Laval, Parks and Recreation Director. Well, I can tell you I probably have a few more gray hairs over this one. So traditionally, we solicit quotes because we're under the $25,000 for fireworks. And in my 19 years, I don't think we've ever had an issue of getting a firework company. But this year, everybody's having issues with fireworks. If they're under contract, our neighboring cities, they are seeing increases just due to supply, due to staffing. The company we've used since I've been here, every single year, just can't get the staff or the supply. So that put us in panic mode, and we started calling everybody we knew around the state who they used, and then we started calling companies, and we contacted 9 different companies. We only could get one company that could do
do the show on the 4th of July. So we wanted to make sure we brought you options. So we reached out to some other companies to see if there was any other dates they could provide for us. July 2nd was the other date that they can provide shows for us. The other concern we had is the price. So normally we pay around $21,000 for a show, and as you can see, it's up to $37,500, which is a large increase. So what we're looking for, like you said in the motion, is we're looking for you to tell us, do you want to do the 4th of July on the 4th of July, or would you like to do it on July 2nd?
No.
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 Okay.
Easy choice, July 4th.
4th of July.
So that would leave us
I will not
one.
be the mayor that celebrates July 4th on any other day, even though John Adams did say July 2nd would be the date. No, we ain't moving it.
Which leads us to just one vendor. So then we're asking to waive our formal bidding requirements so that we can contract with Explosive Touch, and for you to tell us, do you want a full show or a reduced show and the number of shells?
Full show.
It's still a 15-minute show if you go with the reduce, though.
Yeah, it's just a smaller, so they'll go up slower and they won't go up as high. So the shells are smaller in size. So there's a difference in the show. People who watch them from their neighborhoods, like Brandy Hills and those types of things, may not be able to see them from there. So those are our two options for the 4th of July: a reduced show using smaller shells and less shells, or doing the same type of show we've always done in the past traditionally, which is, I think we did 2,700 plus shells in last year, so we'd be at 2,900.
Even at City Center, depending on where you sit, you'll have an obstructed view, and I can't imagine fewer shells not going as high.
Yeah.
I
Not
don't know
an
what y'all
option.
feel.
Full show.
It is $12,000 difference
Yeah, no.
for about 400 less shells.
Nope.
I'm not going to, if you want to advocate for something different, that's fine, but I'm not going to be the guy that tells the thousands of people that show up at City Center that you came on the wrong day for a lesser show. I'm just not going to do that.
When we didn't do the show last year, it was budgeted for it. Where did those dollars get put after?
We did do the show last year.
I mean, or the prior, excuse
It's
me.
in the general fund, so it went to your fund balance.
Take it from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the plan. We're going to fund it out of our operating right now, and when the our finance director brings through mid-year appropriations, it will be in that budget resolution.
Perfect.
To move that money.
It's probably the single most attended event that we ever do on our campus at in a period of, a focal period of time. I know that some of the events are spread out over days, but my opinion is we got to do this on the right day, the day it's always been meant
And do it
for,
right.
and we're going to do it right. And
It is
and
nothing short of iconic.
Yeah, and I get that this is a very unusual time in the history of our country, and why some of these things are going to be, more than we thought. But this is one where the residents deserve it, and for the last 2 years, we've had to miss, we've had to skimp, we've done a lot, and I say we suck this one up and we pay it and we get it done, and we hope for better competitiveness next year. We'll see, but it's 4th of July. You gotta bring the A game on 4th of July.
That's it.
And so just be clear, they're committed. I mean, I know you probably discussed this with them days or weeks ago, perhaps, but it gets voted for tonight. It's a done deal. They're locked in. And unless
That's not the facial
your
expression I
our
want to see.
assumption is that they're
So
ready
until,
to go.
No
until
matter
we
what
have
we
a
do
signed
tonight,
contract
she's
with
going to
the
be on the phone at 8:30
Correct.
a.m. tomorrow morning.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
until we have a signed
All right.
contract, I can't tell you exactly.
I got you.
Yes,
Okay.
but we have asked them to hold on until this meeting. We were having this meeting. If they could just hold everybody else off who was trying to book them.
Okay.
But I can't promise you anything until we get a signed contract.
Make it happen.
Well, I think I know the direction of council. Would anyone here care to speak to it or try to change our mind? There being none, back to us, council. Final comments?
Let's get it done.
There being none, call the roll.
Councilmember Foley.
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont.
Yes.
Councilmember Basham.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Silver.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. Additional items, city attorney.
None tonight.
Excellent report. City manager.
None tonight.
Excellent report. Which brings us to Council committee reports, River to Sea TPO.
Real quick before I give that, I missed one thing in my council comments. About a month and a half ago, I'd made a mention that I wanted for our broadcast to start zooming back in on us and putting our names up there so people could understand when we were talking and they were watching it. And I want to say thanks to the media team and Corey for doing that so quickly. It was the very next meeting that it was back, and I took notice of it. I already had a couple residents thank us for that, and I meant to say that during the council comments, and I missed it. So I'm sorry, but I want to make sure I said thanks to them in that regard. Just for Rivers to Sea TPO, they are wrapping up the executive director search this week. We'll have all of that figured out, and so I should be able to report on it after the next meeting. I was able to attend in person, which I enjoy thoroughly more than being on Zoom, and that's all for that report.
General Employees Pension Board, more on pensions. Vice Mayor Stiltner.
Well, I'll be brief and note that the information I was going to report on would have been roughly a month old, but since we happen to have our actuary here tonight who brought you some rebounding good news for March, we'll just say that we had a better March than we did a February. And really the only other thing that I want to bring to the council's attention from the Gen Pen is that we are going to quarterly meetings as opposed to monthly. So we've got a process in place. Nothing will miss a beat. People that retire and need paperwork done and things approved, it'll all happen. So that's all I got.
Art Health, Councilman Tremont.
I have nothing to report.
Roundtable of elected officials, we had no meeting this month, so I had a similar report of nothing. Any other business come before us this evening? If not, before I say goodnight, I'm going to say happy birthday to Councilman Drew Bastian tomorrow.
Appreciate it.
Enjoy yourself.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everybody.